Shotoku Taishi. Welcome back to another Business Blaze. This one, I'm really hoping that one day, I've promised that I will make these scripts, like the original scripts, a merch item at some point. These are going to be known as the Corona Specials because I'm running out of printer paper and the margins are absolutely crazy. I don't know why, but when I was at school, I like to see how many words I could fit on a page, so I'd write essays for class. And then I'd make the margins tiny, make the font really small, and just hand in one single piece of paper for like a 2,000 word essay. Oh, I can see why my teachers were annoyed and asked me to stop doing that. This is Business Blaze. As I've said, I'm Simon, I'm the host here. Danny writes the scripts. Afterwards, I recently said that I didn't mention Sam in the process, he's the editor. And then he inserted a clip of, "Hello darkness, my old friends." And I was like, well, we'll have to cut that out, Sam. It's copyright. This is history's oldest companies. Thank you, Danny, for putting it together. Let's just jump in, shall we? Join me as we blaze. I wonder how old a company should ideally be before they're allowed to start boasting about the year in which they were first established. I suppose it's not entirely... By the way, this is absolutely massive. This is like 6 pages, wall to wall. I suppose it's not entirely relevant for technological companies where new sometimes feels better. If you're looking for someone to develop a cutting-edge e-commerce platform for your new range of novelty Enron oven mittens, you're probably more likely to feel attracted to 2020 digital future visions than you are to Cobweb Bob's electronic computer services established in 1972. Yeah, I guess, but I'd still want, like, if there was someone I'd choose, it'd be like, yeah, I want Microsoft. Or someone like at least a few years old, because, I don't know, don't all the new companies eventually, like, I feel most of them fail. But when it comes to the automotive industry or alcoholic beverages or gourmet food brands, consumers tend to feel a bit more reassured if the company has a long legacy, which has survived for generations. The food thing can be a little hard to understand, as I'm not sure how we can judge all food products by history. Just because people used to eat mock turtle soup, calf's foot jelly, and lightly roasted cow udders? Surely not. That doesn't necessarily mean that we should still be doing this today. Goddamn right. Although, I don't know what a mock turtle is. Is it a fake turtle? But I'd definitely try all of those. Maybe, we got a podcast, by the way, and I recently did an episode talking about this guy, whose name I can't remember, but it's in the podcast. It's called The Simon Whistler Show. You can YouTube search it if you want. It's also on podcast platforms. And he ate, his life's goal was to eat all of the world's animals. And I mean, not all of the animals, but to taste every single one. And I was like, that's bold. Maybe some people just like to think that these products hark back to the good old days when apparently everything was made better. Or maybe we can just take it as quite a good sign that these companies have managed to last for so long without going bankrupt or killing anyone. Oh, they've killed people. Like, your company's been around for long and you make food, you literally make something that goes inside someone's body, you've killed people. The jar of Robertson's Golden Shred marmalade in my fridge, Danny's fridge, proudly claims on the packaging that the company has been using the same recipe since 1874, which seems a bit lazy to me. Also, I'd be disappointed. We did a video on like patent medicines from the 19th century, like all the crazy shit that was in them. I'd be slightly disappointed if there wasn't tons of cocaine in that marmalade, judging by how they made things in the past. Still, at least their marketing has moved very slowly with the times, and they finally retired the Gollywog character, who was the racially insensitive face of Golden Shred marmalade for 92 years. Oh my. But even churning out the same orange shreds of gunky goo for the best part of 150 years pales in significance when compared to the enduring track record of certain other long-running companies. The names that we will look at get older as we move down the list, and will eventually arrive at the oldest company in the world that is still running today. Well, kind of. It gets a bit complicated and there's not always very much in the way of concrete evidence. This is the classic situation. I'm like, hey Danny, write a piece about the world's oldest companies. And like, Simon, we don't really know how to define that and there's different issues with ownership. Write the bloody script! God damn! But I should stress that I've avoided sticking to a strict countdown of only the very oldest companies in the world. Jesus Christ, Danny. What did I for? Make me a list of the oldest companies in the world. I've avoided a list of the oldest companies in the world. Otherwise, we'd just end up with a very repetitive video devoted entirely to British pubs and Japanese hotels that Simon would have trouble pronouncing. True. Instead, I've tried to mix it up a bit by including old companies of different natures, and maybe even one or two that you might actually have heard of. We'll see about that, Danny, won't we? Let's crack on. Galet and Co, established 1466, Ish. The youngest kid on the block in our list is the Swiss manufacturer of luxury high-end timepieces. Oh, maybe it's Galet, because it could be French. Whatever. Galet and Co., who claim to have a history stretching all the way back to 1466. That's certainly what their logo would seem to indicate. This was the year that a young French clockmaker called Humbertus, absolutely epic name, Galet, he's French, let's call him Galet from now on. Humbertus Galet, let's just call him Humbertus. Epic. He went to Geneva and he got himself listed on the census as a builder of tower clocks. Fascinating. And for the next 400 years, the family history would seem to suggest that the descendants of Humbertus followed in his footsteps in clock building, watchmaking, and general goldsmithery. It's believed by many that each new generation of Galet was essentially taking over the reins of the very same family business. But it's not until 1826 that we see any evidence forming of an official company called Galet and maybe CIE. This is when Julien Galet first registered the name Le Chaux de Fonds, maybe. And it has to be noted that I feel like with French, you just kind of speak a bit lazy and don't say the consonants at the end of words. Le Chaux de Fonds. Sure. So the idea of a wristwatch has been invented years earlier. Although the idea of a wristwatch had been invented years earlier, Galet had a claim on introducing the first mass-produced wristwatch worn for the American market in 1892. Well, we're getting mighty specific now. Yeah, it's the first wristwatch for Americans that was mass-produced in the 18th century by me. Sadly, nobody was remotely interested in such a silly idea as wearing the time on your wrist, and nearly all watches ended up getting sent straight back to Switzerland, where they were replaced with today's sponsor, Vincero Watch It. Not really, but now would be a good time. Apparently, men found the concept too feminine, while women just found it too strange. The idea only really began to gain traction during the First World War, when soldiers realized that a wristwatch was quite a handy way of being able to quickly tell the time while you were being shot at by enemy forces. What? It's like, oh no, we're under attack! John, what's the time? 3:15! Run! Why is the time relevant? If I'm being shot at, literally don't care. Like, what's the time? Time to run, mate. Bada-boom, boom. Yes, I just did it on my own joke. By the way, I was trying to come up with cool things to do when this channel reaches specific milestones. I was thinking that if it does get to like 1 million subscribers, I've got some ideas for 100,000 already because we're quite close to being there, which is epic. I was thinking for like around 1 million or maybe 500,000, I'd buy a full drum set. I cannot play the drums, but I would learn to do the extended bada-boom, boom, rim shot. Maybe someone could teach me. Let me know in the comments if that sounds like a good idea. How much are drum sets? Over the course of the 20th century, Galet was the company behind a number of timepiece innovations, including the Flying Officer Chronograph. Originally designed for pilots and navigators of the US Air Force, this was the very first watch to feature a rotating bezel, which made it possible to self-calculate changes in time zone as pilots flew across lines of latitude. I do really like pilot watches. There's quite a lot of pilot watches that I'm a big fan of and I would like to own, but they're almost always over 40 millimeters, 42 millimeters in width, and I have very small wrists, so I can't really even pull off a 40 millimeter watch properly. When Vincero sends us sponsorship watches out to ask them for the small versions. I'm pointing over there because there's a big shelf here with all my various sponsor items that I promote. Then President of the United States, Harold S. Truman, famously always had one on his wrist throughout his 2-term presidency. I'm gonna sound extremely dumb right now, but I'm just realizing that Harry is short for Harold. Wow. My cousin's called Harry. I'm pretty sure his name is just Harry though. Does it have to be short for Harold? Because it was Harry S. Truman, right? And it's Harold S. Truman as well. Fascinating. Galet also produced the world's first waterproof stopwatch in the 1940s, although much like the mobile phones that we discussed in an old Business Blaze episode, I would suggest that they're more water resistant than waterproof, along with the first stopwatch to feature a spare parts compartment for quick and easy on-the-spot repairs. For that time, you really need your stopwatch. That last one sounds like quite a cool idea, but I can only assume it never really caught on, as I've never heard of it in my life before now. Yeah, also we just decided, stopwatches are not some fancy implement anymore. They're something something that cost about £1, and if they broke, we'd just throw them away. I mean, shit, if the battery ran out, it's probably just easier to buy a new one. Where's the tiny screwdriver? At the peak of their success, Galet was shifting around 100,000 watches a year, and although that may not seem like an incredibly high number, you have to bear in mind that they cost a fortune and were often viewed as status symbols for the filthy rich. Kind of like today then. However, Galet ended up withdrawing from the US market in the 1980s when everyone began to realize that you could get a pretty good quartz watch produced in Japan for a tiny fraction of the price. That is a whole, I could do a business blaze. Would people be interested in this, in the quartz crisis, which was this thing in the watchmaking world where, mechanical watches were almost going to be made extinct because quartz watches are far cheaper, they tell way better time, and people are like, why do we have mechanical watches anymore? And now mechanical watches are kind of back, they have a renaissance, for a long time now, because people are like, it's insanely cool that, all the mechanics of it. I love watches, I find it insanely cool. Maybe that's just me, let me know. Company now largely focused on supplying components and moving parts to other watch and clock manufacturers, although they do still produce the odd, wildly expensive collector's piece from time to time. Whether they really are and wildly expensive with watches can be absolutely wild. I gotta know how much this is. It can just go up into the millions. Oh, they have some vintage ones on here. They're not outrageous. I say that, they are several $1,000s. In the watchmaking world, that's not an insane price. Although I guess these are the older ones, so wow, these are really nice. I'm not shopping for watches right now. I'm making a business blaze. Whether they really are the oldest surviving watch and clock makers in the world is open to question. Although the family business roots do seem to stretch all the way back to 1466, it's only very recently that Galet added this establishment year to their logo and marketing, and the company that we know of today didn't officially get started until 1826, which is still really old. I don't think you can claim just because your family made watches back in the day that your company's been around since the 1400s. I don't know about that. But it's certainly a good example of a business that's kept in the family for hundreds of years. Although it's sad to note that this long tradition finally came to an end in 2006 when Bernard Galet passed away without an heir to take over the sands of time. In fact, 2006 would be quite a bad year for incredibly old businesses. But more on that later. Oh my god, I can't wait. Stella Artois, established 1366-ish. Previously mentioned on this channel, Stella Artois in the UK, we call it wife beater. And I think some Americans commented that they call, or you guys, if you're American, you call the wife beater a singlet, the vest without the arms and it comes down here. And I'm like, yeah, we call that a wife beater as well. We have two uses for wife beater. If you are wearing a singlet while drinking Stella, you're a double wife beater. One of the most overpriced pub trips I ever experienced in my life was during a 2-hour wait at Abu Dhabi airport as I waited for a connecting flight to Manila. Danny, where are you going? What is going on? I'm not even sure, is Manila in the Philippines? I'd originally intended to take this opportunity to explore the international melting pot of rich cuisine on offer at the airport. But then I found a British-themed pub, which I found strangely comforting. I ended up holding myself in there until it was time to catch the next flight. I think I've been to Abu Dhabi's airport as well. It might have been there, or in Dubai airport, or one of these, Middle Eastern airports that you almost always lay over in if you're going anywhere further east. The beer was insanely expensive. And I was like, I don't know how many, dinars or whatever this is. So I was just like, well, I guess I'll put it on my card. How expensive can it be? A lot. It was expensive. This was about 10 years ago and it cost me about £40, which is what, $50, to enjoy 3 pints of Stella Artois lager. After I bought the first pint, I sent loads of text messages to friends ranting and raving about the ridiculous prices, but then I still bought 2 more. It's true. And then Danny beat his wife. Even outside of airports, Stella Artois has always been the reassuringly expensive choice. That's their marketing. However, no one thinks of that. Please don't sue me. Although it's earned the nickname of wife beater in the UK because of its high strength and perceived connection with binge drinking and domestic violence. I don't know why I'm laughing, this is terrible. But that seems a bit harsh. It's certainly stronger stuff than Heineken, but it's probably more socially acceptable than sitting in a park bench with a 4-pack of treacle thick super strength lager while starting an argument with the pigeons. Yeah, it's true. Is Stella Artois really that strong? It's like 5.2%. Regular beer's like 5%. So I don't know what proof that is, Americans. It's like 5.2% alcohol is Stella, 5% is regular beer. It's not a big difference. It's like a 5% difference. Not even that. I think there's some, maybe it's got drugs in it that makes people beat their wives. It doesn't really, that's a joke, Stella lawyers. Oh! According to the Stella logo, the Belgian drink has been around since 1366, but again, the history here is open to interpretation. It was back in 1366, the original Den Hoorn brewery, fucking epic name, found in Leuven, but it wasn't until much later in 1717 that the then head brewer Sebastian Artois decided to buy the company and rename it God damn it, Dutch? Klutzak Brouwerij Artois. Oh wait, where is this? This is Leuven? Is Leuven in Belgium? I thought it was in the Netherlands. Or maybe it just sounds Dutch. This is definitely the Dutch language though. Brouwerij. The Stella brand was originally launched in 1926 as a Christmas beer, and it's worth remembering that Stella is the name of the specific drink rather than the company itself, which went through a string of mergers in the 20th century and is currently owned by Interbrew International BV. Sounds like the most generic beverage company. What's the name? Interbrew International? Sounds like a fake drink company from like cartoons. Stella Artois is now one of the best-selling lagers in the world, although it has to be said it's not very popular on its home turf. While Belgium is happy to export millions of barrels of the stuff around the globe, the home country generally regards Stella to be average at best. Despite the slightly cloudy company history, the heritage of Stella Artois is often hyped up in the marketing and presentation. I actually went off it in more recent years when British pubs were told to start serving it in slightly ridiculous chalice glasses, which apparently pays homage to the lager's medieval lineage. After the company came under fire in 2008 for launching a TV commercial campaign which appeared to suggest that Stella had been brewed from the same four ingredients, maize, malted barley, hops, and water, since 1366. I remember that. The problem with the claim is that maize hadn't even landed in Europe until 1492. Whoops! Weirdly, although the commercial was investigated by the UK Advertising Standards Authority, the complaints were thrown out on the grounds that the commercial was of fantastical and unreal nature and the claims weren't meant to be taken too literally. That seems like a very generous interpretation, ASA. And I know from YouTube friends that you're really hard-ass about like what you can and can't promote. What is the fantastic interpretation? Stella Artois has been made from four ingredients forever, and then it hasn't. And they're like, that's cool. Although the company may be playing a little too much on that was me moving my little radiator because it's still coronavirus and my boiler is still broken and it's still winter. Technically it's spring, it feels like winter, I'll tell you that. Doesn't matter, it's not like I can go outside. God, it's gonna be weird watching these videos in like 5 years. Although the company may be playing a little too much on the heritage angle, it's fair to say that Stella Artois at least has some roots as a brewery that was founded in 1366. It's just a bit misleading to try and suggest the brewery has been sticking to the exact same recipe for over 600 years, because it hasn't. There wasn't even the ingredients. Incidentally, an international lobbying company called Portland Communications attempted to try and delete any trace of the phrase wife beater from Wikipedia's page on Stella in 2012. Oh, let's see how that went. Stella Artois wiki wife beater. They did not succeed. On the Wikipedia page, the only mention of wife beater is their attempt to remove the references to wife beater. That backfired. This attracted some controversy when it was revealed that Portland Communications was working on behalf of their clients who just happened to be the owners of Stella, and so there was a clear conflict of interest when it came to who was editing a Wikipedia page, obviously, and also who cares enough to do that other than Stella. And the owner of Portland Communications should have known better. His name was Tim Allen, the former advisor to ex-Prime Minister Tony Blair, rather than the guy who voices Buzz Lightyear in the Toy Story films. Other Wikipedia editors were quick to spot what was happening and reinstated the references to wife beater, which are still there today, along with a new section on how Portland Communication tried to fail to remove them. So I think there's still a battle going on because they're not in there right now, and Danny wrote this days ago. So I'm betting if I look in the revision history, there's going to be plenty of references to wife beater being removed. Oh my! So it would appear that the brewers of Stella aren't too keen on the phrase wife beater being connected with their beverage. What a fucking shock. Let's hope that nobody uses it about 4 times in quick succession on a YouTube video. And rather appropriately, the next one is called the Bingely Arms. Established 953 AD-ish. It was only while researching this script that I suddenly realized I'd been lied to for over 20 years. Oh my god, am I going to find out the same? I'd always believed that I'd enjoyed several pints of wife beater over the years in the oldest pub in Europe. And let's just start the legal disclaimers now, because obviously I don't think Danny could be referring to any number of beers here, including things like Foster's, Heineken, Carlsberg, even international beers like Kingfisher, Singha, Pilsner Urquell, or perhaps other international beers like Stella. We just don't know. It could be any of those that I've mentioned. There's a pub in York, in the UK, called Ye Old Star Inn, which, quite apart from having a fabulously medieval name, also had a sign on the wall which claimed that it was probably the oldest pub in Europe. Well, that's about like claiming like Business Blaze. Probably the best channel on YouTube. Probably. I had to check with my friend Alex Southern over this one, as I was beginning to think that my memory was playing tricks on me, or that I'd drunk too many pints of wife beater while I was in there. Again, that can refer to any beer. Alex studied archaeology at York University, and he knows a thing or two about history. More importantly than that, he's an infamous stumble-bum drunkard who has been thrown out of every pub in Britain. Alex confirmed the sign was definitely still there, and it probably is today. But it turns out that hundreds of other pubs are also making the exact same claim, and it's difficult to prove this one way or the other. The Old Star Inn probably wouldn't even make the real top 50, as it only claims to have been licensed since 1644, which is almost new and shiny by historic pub standards. However, the medieval structure suggests that it might have been serving up tankards of beer under a completely different name before then. The fabulously named Ye Old Fighting Cocks. That's incredible. And if anyone's comments, Simon, it's Yoldy. It's not. That's just how it's written. It's pronounced old. In St Albans, Hertfordshire also claims to be the oldest pub in Europe, but that's very unlikely as the building has a 16th century appearance, and that's still relatively fresh. The Old Trip to Jerusalem in Nottingham makes the much more ambitious claim that it was established in 1189, but there's no documentation to prove that it was a pub until 1751, and it's generally believed that the current building is no more recent than 1660. How do you even get away with that? It's 500 years. You can look at the building and be like, well, no, that's a completely different era. Business Blaze, established 1432. Perhaps the strongest contender is the Bingley Arms. Oh, it's Bingley. But we could just call it Bingley, couldn't we? The Bingley Arms in Leeds, which claims that it has a history stretching all the way back to 953 AD. The building has certainly been around that long. In fact, it's probably older than that, but 953 AD is the year we first see evidence of it being used as a brewery. For hundreds of years, the pub went by the name. It must have really small doors. Like, people seem to be short in the past or some shit like that, and all the doors are really, like, small. Like, when I was at school, there was one building that was, I don't know, like 500 years or whatever, like one of the original school buildings, and the doors were, like, up to here on an adult. You'd really, like, fully have to duck to get in. My nan lives in a house, or she did live in a house, it was, like, 500 years old or something, and the whole of her living room had been, hundreds of years ago, but had been dug out by about this much because the ceiling was too short for people in the modern day. So all of the like ground floor of the house had been dug out, so you'd step down into it, so the ceilings weren't insanely short. Fascinating. For hundreds of years, the pub went by the name The Priest's Inn, as it was a popular spot for travelling monks to eat during the journey from Kirkstall Abbey in Leeds to St Mary's in York. It only adopted the name the Bingley Arms in 1790, but the Guinness Book of World Records is happy to accept 953 AD as the establishment date and recognises the Bingley Arms as the official oldest pub in Britain. The Guinness Book of Records is a bit weird though, because it's like, yeah, you can... There's all sorts of records for all sorts of stuff, but also so much of it is like, yeah, if you're willing to pay the guys to come out. There's probably people who just like, don't care. I think all this really proves that is any old pub with high ceilings, murky lighting, and authentic smells of rising damp can claim to be the oldest pub in the world, and nobody really bothers to question it. And besides, you're probably better off going next door to the other pub with the Quizmacy machine and the jukebox. Nishiyama, Onsen, Keiunkan, established 705 AD. I'm not going to look up the Japanese pronunciation because I don't care. There's no escaping those tricky Japanese names for the last two entries on this video, as 9 of the top 20 oldest companies in the world are Japanese, including all of the top 5. Wow. Although I don't want to peak too soon, as Nishiyama Onsen Keiyu whatever is now officially the oldest company in the world, though it only recently acquired this title after the previous company at the top fell off the map. We'll get to that in a moment. Again, cannot wait. I should be more excited about my own content on Business Blaze, I realize, because otherwise why would you guys keep watching? It's like, not even Simon cares. But this particular company is a hot spring hotel which opened its doors for the first time way back in 705 AD, I mean. The 35-room hotel is located at the foot of Akaishi Mountains and sources all of its hot water directly from the local Hakuho Springs. And these are all places, so I could definitely look these up in my pronunciation dictionary, but I'm not going to. Over the course of 1,300 years, the hotel has played host to many notable names, but we're mainly talking Japanese politicians and samurai and ruling families and military commanders, rather than celebrity names like Phil Collins or Rick Astley. I love how Danny watches these videos and is like very familiar with all of the memes. And I also feel slightly guilty. The most astounding thing about this hot spring hotel is that it has managed to remain a family business for all this time. I'm always quite impressed when I hear about third generation or even fourth generation owners of long-running family business. But in this case, the hotel is currently run by the 52nd generation owners of the company. Oh my god. From a family line which can accurately be traced all the way back to the original founder, Fujiwara Mahito, in 705 AD. Oh my god, in like the year 3006, I don't know why I added the 6 on there, but it's gonna be like, yeah, Simon Whistler the 79th, and he's gonna be blazing it up. He's not. It's definitely not. Let's just say that YouTube channels don't have the same lifespan as Japanese whatever the fuck we're talking about. But in this case, hotels. And in fact, this is one of the key reasons why so many of the world's oldest companies are Japanese. Of course, you'd naturally expect such an old country with such an old economy to have a head start on most of the rest of the world, but this doesn't explain why so many of them have lasted so incredibly long. England has quite a long economic history too, but we still get excited when a company manages to keep making marmalade for over 100 years. No, we don't. According to a report published by the Bank of Korea in 2008, there are 5,586 companies in the world that have lasted for over 200 years. And a jaw-dropping 3,146 of those are Japanese, accounting for 56% of the entire list. Way down in second place is Germany, which accounts for 15% of the list. The reason for the longevity can be boiled down to the fact that Japan has a very different philosophy to business, which is entirely rooted in family. Nepotism. Unlike the rest of the world, where everything revolves around rapid maximization of profit and company mergers and corporate takeovers, Japanese business is more about sustainability and keeping the business in solid, healthy shape for the next heir in line to take over the reins. So that's $6 billion from Theranos to buy out the company might seem like a tempting offer, but it's nowhere near as important as making sure that the business stays in the family for the next generation. It's a philosophy which seems to have stood the test of time. Apparently so. But I sure would like $6 billion. By the way, if you're interested in booking a night stay at the Nishiyama Onsen, I should warn you that the prices are a bit steep, but you do get access to 6 massive natural spring baths which deliver spectacular views of the wilds of Japan. Just be warned though, that free Wi-Fi can be a bit ropey. Yeah, I'm not in then. I mean, all the views of Japan you want, but it's like if there's no Wi-Fi, kinda out. Oh, that's terrible, isn't it? Kongo Gumi. Established 578 AD. Is this the final? Oh, it is the final entry. Danny says right here, the final entry in this video is quite a sad story with a very recent final chapter. Cue the sad music. Kongo Gumi is the oldest company on this list, with a continuously operating history that lasted for nearly 1,428 years. But it went into liquidation in 2006, the same year that Galet and Co lost its very last member of the Galet family. Yes, I am resting my foot on my heater. My foot is cold, even though it's inside a fairly well-insulated boot. Although Kongo Gumi was a Japanese construction company, its roots were very much outside of Japan. This feels very laid back, almost like, I want to say talking to a horse, but that makes no sense, and I don't know why that entered in my head. What's wrong with me? I'm not calling you a horse either. Just over a century after the fall of the Roman Empire, the Japanese prince Shotoku Taishi commissioned the construction of Japan's very first Buddhist temple. The only slight problem was that the Japanese had no skills or experience in constructing Buddhist temples, as they had been too busy with wood, bronze, and electronic handheld games. Note to self, check this again before sending to Simon, otherwise we might end up looking a bit silly. You did, Danny. Shame on you. I think it's time that you commit seppuku. Not really, don't do that, Danny, I need you. So the prince turned to cheap foreign labor, just like any good modern company, and hired 3 experienced temple builders from the Buddhist state of Baekje, a kingdom which would now be recognized as South Korea. One of those laborers was a guy called Shigetsu Kongu, whose work on the temple laid down the foundations of his own construction firm called Kongo Gumi, which would remain a private family-run company for the best part of 1.5 centuries. Does Danny mean millennia? I think he means millennia, because it's 1,500 years old. Jesus Christ. Over the years, the business expanded its horizons from time to time, but still remained a temple-building firm at its heart. And even as late as 2004, the construction of temples accounted for 80% of their revenue. That's incredible. How do we care as much about temples in like 578 AD as we do today? Because it's well known, like, as countries get richer and more prosperous, they care about religion less because they're like, oh yeah, we're not gonna die, or like there's medicine to take care of us rather than the man in the sky. Smash that dislike button. Oh, despite surviving wars, political crises, natural disasters, and even a 19th century attempt by the government to eradicate Buddhism from Japan, the company sadly couldn't survive the bursting of the 1980s financial bubble. The Japanese banks had relaxed their lending standards during the bubble, and just like many other companies at the time, Kongo Gumi took advantage of this and borrowed heavily during the growth of the bubble. And just like many other companies, it found itself in the mountains of massive debt when the bubble popped. Although it limped on for the next few years, it was eventually forced into liquidation in 2006 and was ultimately swallowed up by the construction conglomerate Takamatsu. Also, so the company does kind of exist, doesn't it? I mean, it's all very blurry. It seems a shame that the world's longest running company was effectively allowed to just die, although it could be argued that the name Kongo Gumi still exists today as a subsidiary of Takamatsu. I should really read these ahead of time. But it's not quite the same. Then again, the entire history of the oldest companies in the world is littered with so many false claims, dubious facts, misleading marketing, and arguable conclusions that it's impossible to get a completely accurate picture. It seems that anyone can stick a sign on the wall or an establishment date in their logo without raising too many eyebrows. I should have stuck to my original idea of writing over 3,000 words on the history of Robertson's Golden Shred Marmalade, but I'm not sure that would have been entirely appropriate for Business Plays, officially the oldest channel in the world. Oh, this has been Business Plays, the oldest channel in the world. Thank you for watching. If you watched to the end, absolute legend, because you gave me all that sweet watch time, and I know this video is long. It's goddamn long. I'm looking at the time right now. I can't see it. My long distance vision sucks. I need an update on my prescription. Thank you for watching. Legends. I'll see you next time.
So the idea of a wristwatch has been invented years earlier.